So, this year there's new drivers, there's new cars, there's old drivers with new cars. There's just a lot of different diversity when it comes to the season.
In the stillness of a late Oklahoma night, long after the roar of engines had faded, a quiet disturbance around Ryan Martin's trailer sent shockwaves through the entire Street Outlaws community. Crew members who first stepped inside froze in place, sensing something far darker than a simple racing mishap.
Because everybody on our team is fast.
Whispers spread faster than tire smoke. This wasn't just unexpected. It was genuinely terrifying. So, what could rattle one of the toughest racers on the asphalt? And what exactly was discovered inside that trailer that left even veteran drivers speechless? Inside the trailer that shattered a racing legend. Ryan Martin's name once meant one thing: winning. Fans, rivals, and sponsors saw him as the calm master of chaos, turning raw horsepower into precision. His Fireball Camaro wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of dominance. With multiple No Prep Kings championships, a net worth of over $2 million, and more than 300,000 social media followers, Martin seemed untouchable, methodical, and unstoppable, extracting perfection from every run while others faltered. But the higher he climbed, the longer his shadow grew. Admiration among competitors slowly turned into suspicion. How could one man stay so far ahead for so long? Observers began noticing patterns that didn't align with a simple skill. His constant interstate travel, always with the same trailer hauling the Fireball Camaro, became the first hint. It was his mobile workshop, his sanctuary, but perhaps something more. Then the anonymous tips began. Vague warnings of cargo that didn't belong in a racing hauler initially seemed like jealousy, but they didn't stop. Each new message added precise details: dates, locations, unusual delays. Investigators quietly mapped movements and appearances. Travel routes didn't match a driver racing through the country. Stops seemed unrelated to competitions. Surveillance followed, distant and careful, as months of notes built a growing picture. When authorities finally approached the trailer, expectations of tools and tires vanished. They were there for evidence that could rewrite a reputation. Crew members went silent, faces drained, phones buzzed. The trailer that had been a refuge became a sealed vault. When the door opened, the contents didn't speak of speed or trophies. Instead, they hinted at something heavier, something that made even seasoned investigators hesitate. Here's the unexpected twist. The same discipline and precision that made Martin unbeatable on the track mirrored another operation entirely, one as organized, hidden, and methodical as the victories everyone celebrated. Behind the public glory, a shadow network ran alongside the legend, reshaping everything fans thought they knew about the man behind the Fireball Camaro. Now what do you think Ryan Martin was really hiding? Could the same skills that made him a racing legend fuel something far darker? Stay tuned. The hidden compartments that rewrote everything. As investigators dug deeper into Ryan Martin's life, the trailer, once seen as nothing more than a moving garage for the Fireball Camaro, became the centerpiece of their growing suspicion. They began tracking its path, noting every mile it traveled from Oklahoma City to distant corners of the country. At first it was routine work, but the patterns that emerged were anything but routine. The trailer was showing up in places that had nothing to do with racing. Small towns are far off the routes between major events. Industrial zones are known for activities that lived in the gray spaces outside legal competition. And when they compared the trailer's movements with the posts Ryan made on his social media, the contradictions were immediate. He often claimed to be in one state while the trailer was logged hundreds of miles away in another. For a man who built his brand on precision, The inconsistencies glowed like red flags. What began as curiosity quickly shifted into concern. Racing, they realized, might not have been the full story. It could have been the perfect cover, loud, fast, and always on the move. A lifestyle that naturally required interstate travel and the regular hauling of large equipment in plain-looking trailers. Ideal camouflage for something layered and tightly controlled. After months of documenting these irregularities, the investigators had enough circumstantial evidence to justify a search. They waited for the right moment, a moment outside Ryan's expectations. They believed he knew how to clean up, how to reset, how to manage appearances. They suspected he had alarms or signals in place. So they watched, waited, and struck when the trailer was left overnight, in a quiet parking lot far from BNR Performance. No one around. No warning. When Ryan arrived and saw the investigators, he didn't flinch. With a shrug and a calm voice, he opened the door. "I have nothing to hide." For a moment, it looked like he might be right. The interior was spotless, rows of organized tools, neatly labeled spare parts, and the Fireball Camaro securely fastened in place. Everything a professional driver's trailer should show. Then someone spotted it. A hairline gap along the wall, too intentional to be an accident. A panel that didn't sit quite right. The first false wall. Tools were brought in. The panel was removed carefully, and behind it, the truth began to unfold. Stacks of cash lined the side wall, bundled and arranged with meticulous care. More panels came down. Waterproof containers appeared, holding documents that pieced together transactions stretching across multiple states and years. Phones, tablets, and hard drives were stored as if someone expected to come back for them. None of it looked accidental. None of it looked harmless. Then came the bags, white powder sealed in plastic. The investigators exchanged glances. Ryan's face drained of color. He paced, silent, watching everything crumble. More compartments were uncovered. One held illegal firearms, another, more cash. Carefully organized, likely exceeding $300,000. The final hidden space contained scales and chemical enhancers used in performance tuning, but their presence beside the other discoveries painted a darker picture. The system inside the trailer was far too sophisticated for one man to build alone. Someone else had been helping him. Someone who understood construction, secrecy, and the power of staying hidden in plain sight. But could Ryan Martin really have orchestrated all of this alone? Or is there a hidden ally shaping a dangerous game behind the scenes? Stay glued. When the silence became louder than engines, the search didn't end with hidden walls and locked cases. As officers cataloged what they had uncovered, a clearer picture began to take shape. The materials were not just stored, they were arranged with purpose. Bundles, devices, and documents were placed as if they were meant to move from one place to another, across state lines, on a schedule that had nothing to do with race weekends. In several notebooks, investigators found handwritten names, dates, and numbers that looked more like records than reminders. USB drives were packed away in paper bags, and some contained encrypted files that had to be handed over to specialists just to be opened. Every piece was tagged, photographed, and sealed. By then, the trailer swarmed with officials. The once private space turned into a crime scene under harsh light. In the confusion, Ryan slipped away to speak with his lawyers. No one stopped him. The warrant allowed a search, not an arrest. That evening, when officers looked for him again, he was gone. Not at the trailer, not at the shop. They packed up the evidence and left, carrying answers without a suspect in hand. And just like that, Ryan Martin seemed to vanish from the public eye. Not long after, fans began noticing something felt wrong. Episodes of Street Outlaws aired without him. No Prep Kings events came and went without the Fireball Camaro roaring down the strip. At first, many assumed he was building something new, planning a dramatic comeback. Others feared a private hardship. Online forums buzzed with guesses, but no one imagined the reality unfolding behind closed doors. What viewers didn't know was that the investigation had started months earlier. Interviews had been conducted, patterns studied. After the trailer search, the pressure only increased. Behind the scenes, Ryan and his legal team worked non-stop. Then, the changes around BNR performance became impossible to ignore. A mechanic who had worked beside Ryan for more than 5 years suddenly disappeared from the shop without explanation. The company website went quiet. No new updates, no showcase builds. Another crew member erased every photo that showed the Fireball Camaro or bore the BNR performance name. Customer testimonials vanished from the site. Services were reduced to the basics. It looked less like a business update and more like a cleanup. Even the people closest to Ryan went silent. His partner, Cherish, known across the racing world as Mama Fireball, pulled away from the sport she once celebrated daily online. Javier Canales, the crew chief who helped build the Camaro's legend, posted nothing. Neither did Michael Bean, Ryan's closest friend. The team that once stood proudly in the spotlight was fading into the background together. And this is where the truth cut deepest. None of the evidence pointed to small-time cheating or illegal fuel. On the track, Ryan had earned his reputation. But the devices recovered told another story. Burner phones held messages about packages, drop-offs, and timing. Emails discussed inventory and territories. Accountants followed the money trail and began uncovering income that never made it to the books or tax returns. Charges of tax evasion and money laundering hung in the air, with more likely to follow. The twist no one expected was how wide the net seemed to stretch. The search suggested a system, not a solo act. An operation built with the same care and discipline that once built a racing empire. As investigators dug deeper, it became clear that if Ryan talked, he wouldn't be the only one facing prison bars. But what secrets lie buried in Ryan Martin's empire? And who else is trapped in a web that mirrors his precision and shadows his fame? Keep watching where loyalty cracked, whispers turned dangerous. By the time the evidence from the trailer had been cataloged, investigators understood one thing clearly. This was not random, and it was not small. Whatever had been built around Ryan Martin's travels and equipment showed planning and order, the kind that rarely belongs to one person alone. That meant more people were involved, whether they knew the full truth or not. The focus shifted immediately to those nearest to him. His racing crew, the hands that loaded the trailer, the faces that stood beside him at tracks across the country, and the ones who had stepped inside that rolling fortress time and again. Interview after interview followed. Some crew members reacted with shock that looked real. Others became defensive. Many repeated the same points, almost word for word. Ryan lived for racing. Ryan obsessed over performance. Ryan was serious about business, but never shady. They said the trailer was always locked when it wasn't in use, that access was tightly controlled, and that Ryan personally handled the loading and unloading of the Fireball Camaro. He arranged his tools himself. He checked every detail. To them, that wasn't suspicious. It was what a champion did. Elite drivers, they reminded the officers, guarded their secrets fiercely. Being private came with the territory, but beneath the surface, cracks started to show. A few people, after hours of gentle pressure, began to talk. If not for truth, then out of fear, immunity, or money. And while some stories led nowhere, others refused to disappear. One crew member spoke about seeing Ryan meet someone in a parking lot, far from any racetrack. He remembered the way Ryan kept scanning the area, the way a small package changed hands quickly. At the time, it seemed harmless, probably a part, maybe a rare component. But after learning what had been found inside the trailer, that memory felt heavier, darker. Another associate shared a story that shook him as he told it. Ryan once asked him to store several boxes in his garage, explaining they were spare parts that didn't fit in the trailer. Ryan promised he would collect them in a few weeks. The boxes sat untouched for more than a month. Out of respect and trust, the man never opened them. When Ryan finally came back, he loaded them into his vehicle and left. Only now, under questioning, did the weight of that decision settle in. Had he unknowingly held something illegal? Had he been used without even realizing it? As the interviews continued, two possibilities became clear. Either Ryan had been incredibly careful and kept most people in the dark, or the loyalty around him ran deeper than anyone expected. Some witnesses seemed genuinely confused. Others seemed guarded in ways that raised more questions than answers. And then came the twist investigators hadn't predicted. Several statements, taken separately, made little sense. But together, a pattern formed, not just of actions, but of timing, meetings, deliveries, storage requests, movements that mirrored the coded messages found on burner phones and the documents pulled from hidden compartments. The crew didn't need to know everything to be part of something bigger. Sometimes, all a system needs is silence. In the end, Ryan hadn't been invisible, just protected, and protected by distance, fame, and people who admired him too much to doubt him. But small details, once scattered, were now lining up into a picture that could no longer be brushed away. Even as investigators realized the hardest truth of all. Breaking the case might depend on someone close to him deciding that loyalty had finally become too dangerous to keep. So, how did Ryan's carefully guarded world unravel so quickly, turning allies into suspects and leaving even the closest loyalists questioning everything? The confession that shattered the calm. Just when it seemed the storm around Ryan Martin might fade into uneasy silence, everything cracked wide open. A man with no ties to Street Outlaws walked into an Oklahoma police station one quiet morning and confessed to being part of something criminal. To neighbors, he had always been ordinary. No fame, no spotlight, just another face in town. But that day, he told officers he had been involved in illegal activity and could no longer live with it. What stunned investigators wasn't just his admission, it was what he refused to do next. He would not name a single other person. Not one. Officers pressed him, offered protection, and even placed full immunity on the table if he would reveal everyone connected to the operation. He still refused. He stuck only to his own role, repeating that he would carry his part alone. Then came the moment that tied everything together. Weeks earlier, the same anonymous source who had launched the investigation had sent a final message to law enforcement, claiming a package was coming, one that would change the entire case. Now, that promise made sense. The man told detectives he had been blackmailed into turning himself in. Someone else had forced his hand. Investigators asked a simple question. Did he know anything about the person sending the tips? His answer froze the room. He was the tipper. The man admitted he was the one who had been sending information from the shadows. For months, he had lived with guilt, unable to sleep, unable to ignore what he had been part of. In the end, the pressure crushed him. This was his way out, not by exposing others, but by exposing himself. As the story broke, the racing world reeled. Drivers who once clapped Ryan on the shoulder now struggled to accept what they were hearing. Some immediately cut ties, deleting photos and wiping social media clean of anything connected to Ryan or BNR performance. A few issued short, careful statements, expressing shock and making it clear they had no connection to anything illegal. One well-known racer wrote that racing was built on trust and fair competition, and that anyone who violated that had no place in the sport. A longtime friend posted only this: "Disappointed doesn't begin to cover it." Then the photos disappeared. Others said nothing at all. That silence spoke just as loudly. Law enforcement began contacting racers individually, asking about meetings, conversations, and strange moments that once seemed harmless. Even those with nothing to hide felt the fear creep in. People replayed old memories in their minds, wondering whether something small could now mean something dangerous. Unlike Ryan, most of them lived and breathed racing. Losing it meant losing everything. And as the community tried to pull itself together, one truth lingered like smoke in the air. The man who confessed had taken his fall alone, but the damage he unleashed was only just beginning to spread. So what happens when one confession unravels an entire empire? Can loyalty survive? Or will everyone tied to Ryan face the consequences? Stay with us. The fallout that shook a racing empire. As the months passed, doubt began to shadow Ryan Martin's once untouchable legacy. Fans and racing enthusiasts started questioning the legitimacy of his no-prep Kings championships. Bloggers dissected his victories like forensic evidence, pointing out that most top racers had built their success on more than just skill. They had resources, connections, and influence. They suggested that Ryan's ability to win consistently may have stemmed not only from talent, but from a network carefully cultivated to earn favor with Oklahoma's racing elite. Arguments erupted in comment sections, but the claims continued gaining traction, eroding fan faith. Discovery Channel faced a dilemma. Ratings surged as viewers tuned in, desperate to follow the unfolding scandal, yet Ryan's absence left a void they couldn't fill. Producers wrestled with a difficult question. Could they keep audiences engaged without him? Ryan was irreplaceable on the track. No one handled a car the way he did. Viewers weren't just tuning in for the show. They were tuning in for him. The pressure grew heavier when law enforcement approached the producers, requesting any unedited footage that could shed light on suspicious behavior. To avoid legal entanglements, the network handed over everything, publicly distancing itself from Ryan's troubles. Meanwhile, Ryan's personal world was unraveling. The BNR performance shop sat empty for weeks. Insider reports suggested he had been taken into custody, then released on bail with movement restrictions. Friends described him as increasingly paranoid, convinced he was being followed, watched, or that his phones were tapped. He had bought multiple burner phones and became suspicious of everyone around him, leaving staff whispering about a possible midlife crisis. Questions quickly rose to the surface. Was it greed, pressure from the wrong people, or simply the temptation of living on the edge? The earnings from BNR performance were steady, but clearly not enough to keep him fulfilled. Whatever drove his choices, the consequences were impossible to ignore. Street Outlaws would move forward. A new champion would eventually take the spotlight, and Ryan's story would remain as a lasting warning to anyone tempted to cross the line. Documents recovered from the trailer revealed others were involved too. Names connected to racing and media communities across multiple states. Young fans who once idolized him now had to reconcile the hero they saw behind the wheel of the Fireball Camaro with the man implicated in a nationwide organized operation, a betrayal that cut far deeper than anyone had anticipated. So, what do you think drove Ryan Martin from racing legend to a secretive criminal web? Was it greed, pressure, or something else entirely? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.